The content in this podcast is provided for informational and educational purposes only. Nothing we say should be taken as individualized advice. If anything you hear brings up concerns for you, we strongly encourage you to speak with your GP, psychologist, or another qualified health professional.
We would like to acknowledge and pay our respects to the traditional owners of the unceded lands of the Kulin Nation on which this podcast is recorded. We acknowledge their rich history and honour the ongoing connection to land, waters, culture and community.
Welcome to This Might Help, a podcast bridging the gap between evidence-based psychology research and your everyday life. We're your hosts, Dr. Kira Hart.
And I'm Dr. Lauren Rossetti, and today we are tackling body image as the topic. We have quite a bit to talk about. We're going to chat about what shapes our body image and how body image has changed over time. But before we really get stuck into that, we're going to do our wellbeing wins and wobbles.
What was your wellbeing win and wobble of the week, Lauren?
My wellbeing win was a wedding that I went to for a friend. It was really lovely, and I had the opportunity for a group of friends to kind of all be in the same spot at one time. And I hadn't seen, or we hadn't all been together in the one place for a really long time. So that was very nice.
So lovely.
Yeah, and got to see our friend get married and have a really lovely day. So that was very wholesome. My wellbeing wobble that I have been talking to you lots about
We have, yes.
is I've been pretty stressed, I would say, and I have found myself kind of getting stuck in a bit of a spiral of like thinking and talking about that stress.
Yeah.
And I think it's gotten in the way of me moving past that or helping myself kind of take the actions to get out of the stress. So, you know, the talking to friends and family and all of that is helpful, obviously, at kind of like offloading some of that or like problem solving. But I think I've gotten to the point where I've just been kind of stuck in those conversations or like stuck in thinking about this stress and worry.
Yeah.
And been very much in the circle of concern, as we talked about in a recent episode. And I'm now ready to put myself back in the circle of control and kind of tackle what I can do about that stress rather than letting myself kind of stay in this spiral. I'm ready to be out of the spiral, Kira. I'm ready to move out of it. Tell me your wellbeing win and wobble.
My wellbeing win is actually a book I'm reading. It's by the Australian journalist Lee Sales, and the book is called Any Ordinary Day or An Ordinary Day. I should know the name of the book title that I'm recommending.
Don't worry.
But it's an amazing book. So Lee Sales sat down with people who have gone through really, really significant tragedy, and it follows how they process that grief. But it's a book about resilience and hope. So it's a beautiful read and I highly recommend it. My wellbeing wobble would be I've just had a few difficult nights sleeping. So much so that I can't even talk at the moment, it seems. But yeah, just not having the best sleep throughout the week, which obviously has flow-on effects, like struggling to speak. So for today's episode, we're speaking all about body image, and we're aware that this is such a big and complex topic that so many people are impacted by. We also thought that there's some really important things to note before we get stuck into today's discussion. Firstly, Lauren and I wanted to acknowledge that we're speaking as two smaller-bodied white women who haven't faced systemic discrimination that people in larger bodies do. So we know our experience of body image isn't universal, and we haven't faced the same stigma or barriers that people in larger bodies or people of colour often do. And we know that body image struggles exist across bodies of all sizes, genders and cultures, but the pressure and consequences that people face aren't evenly distributed.
Yeah, definitely something that we wanted to acknowledge before we get stuck into what is such a big topic, like you said, Kira, and also these discussions around body image and bodies can also be kind of overlapped or linked with challenges with eating, disordered eating types or eating disorders as well, and that we want our listeners and everyone to be mindful that if there are challenges or concerns that come up for you within our discussion today, that you seek out support from a healthcare professional. There are also a range of resources and services that we've linked in the show notes, like the Butterfly Foundation, which a lot of Australian listeners will be familiar with. And those are all places where you can seek support if concerns come up. So just something to be mindful of whilst we are having this chat today.
Exactly. To get started, Lauren, what exactly is body image or body image concerns?
The Butterfly Foundation has a really good definition of this. So they speak to body image refers to the values and beliefs we hold about our body and appearance, the way we think and feel, and the attitudes and behaviors we engage in. Our body image continues to grow, change, and evolve over the course of our lifetime and is influenced by individual and environmental factors. Now, that's a lot of words.
It is long definition.
Yes, a lot of words. Really to say, and I guess what is coming up within our discussion today is that body image shifts and changes over time. It's not something that will be like this static thing for a lot of us. There'll be phases where our relationship with our body is different over stages of our life, but also day to day that can shift and change. And that there are many factors that influence our body image and our relationship with our body image, both things individual to us, but also a lot of external kind of social and cultural factors that impact our body image.
Challenges with body image are, as you said, really, really common. So many of us at different points in our life experience these struggles. There's been some recent research by the Butterfly Foundation. This looked at young Australians, so Australians aged 12 to 18 were their participant sample. And they found, again, that body image concerns were super common, with more than 1 in 3 young people reporting high levels of body dissatisfaction, and over half of participants reporting being dissatisfied with how their body looks.
And 3/4 of young people wish they were thinner or leaner, 2/3 wished they were more muscular, and around half wished they were taller. So having these specific kind of body ideals as well associated with this body dissatisfaction. And 3/4 of young people also are really frequently comparing their bodies to others around them. So that kind of comes up too.
Yes, and although this research did look at that young teenage group sample, people of all ages can probably relate to these statistics.
Yeah.
The paper also found that young people reported that body image dissatisfaction frequently stopped day-to-day activities or prevented them from doing things such as going to the beach or shopping for clothes or doing physical activity and sport.
Yeah.
I know personally there's been moments in my life or periods in my life where my dissatisfaction with my body image has really impacted me and impacted me day to day in how comfortable I felt doing certain things or being around certain people even. And yeah, it really does impact so many people.
Yeah, we've had a lot of these discussions, in preparing for this episode just about how common it is. And we were thinking, when you think to all the people or your friends and family members, it's hard to think of one person that hasn't had challenges with their body image or, had these concerns pop up for them. It's so common. And I think about all of the time and energy and effort that, over the years I have spent worrying about the way that I look and my appearance, and that really impacting, the things that I might get involved in, or the photos that I share, or the way that I, put myself kind of forward in the world, and that being really impacted by my relationship with body image, particularly just the kind of worry and stress or rumination time that I've spent thinking about how I'm unhappy with, how something looked, or definitely common and comes up for all of us. And I think even in doing the podcast and having content and stuff that we have to post, that, being exposed to that both kind of can increase those thoughts and also help to kind of expose us to getting more comfortable with some of
therapy.
Yep. It's definitely been some intense exposure therapy to that. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely something that we all experience. We wanted to also talk about how body image has changed over time, and a bit on the evolution of beauty standards, because it highlights how these body image and beauty standards are shaped by kind of the cultural trends of the time, and that really then impacts our own personal relationship with our body image. So if we think back to like Renaissance era, or like BCE kind of times very long ago, and I guess for most of humanity, larger bodies have really signaled kind of wealth or fertility, or kind of survival if we're thinking about food scarcity and those times. Then in the Victorian era, there was a shift to that kind of severely corseted waists and like little dainty arms and a tiny waist. And Lancet medical journals have actually documented deaths from the tight lacing of corsets.
That is awful.
Which is a really early example of when beauty standards like these have had kind of real direct health impacts.
Yes.
Lots going on there.
Yes. And then the 20th century marked one of the most dramatic shifts in Western beauty standards. So post World War II, we had the return to curves. So in the 1950s, we had popular figures like Marilyn Monroe, who really put into the zeitgeist, and the beauty standards being like a curvy woman. Then in the 1960s, that quickly flipped, and thinness was then the new standard, and there were models like Twiggy who idolized that beauty standard. Then in the 1980s, there was the boom in fitness culture. I'm thinking about like all those aerobic exercise videos that people used to do. And this promoted a new type of diet culture and fitness culture, and this new beauty standard. Then in the 1990s, we had the heroin chic, and that really idolized the extreme thinness, which also bled into the early 2000s. And I suppose that was kind of like the media landscape we had as children. Almost everyone on TV was quite thin. Everyone in magazines were thin. And if they weren't, there was the most disgusting commentary about their bodies. And speaking about other people's bodies in the early 2000s and shaming people for their bodies was really, really normalized, which is just disgusting. But that was the cultural norm.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the 21st century kind of shift as well, we've seen different aesthetic body types come in, and a shift to there being more harder to achieve without interventions like plastic surgery.
Yeah.
So kind of that Kardashian aesthetic.
Yes, the big lips.
Yes. And also then it's kind of very specific plastic surgeries having like a huge surge of people wanting them and accessing those services. With Instagram launching in 2010, that also then obviously promoted this ability for us to see and be exposed to these beauty standards really readily. And things like Snapchat filters came in. There was like a Snapchat dysmorphia kind of phenomenon where people were seeking out plastic surgeries to resemble the filters that were being used on Snapchat.
Yes, it's such a slippery slope because you have some cute like cat face Snapchat filters, but then there's other ones that really kind of like promote distorted body features and this like unrealistic beauty standard. So it's such a slippery slope between a cute filter and something a little bit more sinister maybe.
Yeah. And that rise in social media and just the emergence of social media within the 2010s, or particularly for Instagram, I should say, has just added a layer of that as well.
So there's always throughout history been these beauty standards that reflect the social context and pressures of the time, which throughout history they have been unrealistic or really, really difficult to attain. And this has looked different during different eras, but it's just always occurred, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we have unique pressures now due to that access to social media particularly, and our ability to compare ourselves so easily to other people has I think there are unique pressures now that we face with this, but also we have just such greater access to things like cosmetic procedures and also products that can be used to change the way that we look. And that is on one side an element of kind of social media and what we have access to. On the other side, social media has also enabled more of those discussions around body acceptance and kind of opening up these discussions around body image. Also enabling the conversations to be a bit more inclusive and diverse, and to address how body image impacts different cultures and body sizes and genders and sexualities and ethnicities, and just allowing more conversation around body image to be more inclusive. There's still a lot of work to go in that space though. So much work still to go.
But you've raised such a good point where we are currently at quite an interesting time, because there has been over the past 10 or so years a really positive movement towards body acceptance. And if I'm thinking about like my friendship group, the way we speak to each other and the media we consume is really body positive. On the flip side of that though, there is still so much body shaming that exists. And we've kind of found ourselves in like different silos depending on what media you consume or kind of like your social circle. People think about and talk about bodies very differently.
And I think that's where the privilege that you spoke about at the beginning of the episode as well comes in, because it is, if your body is of a size that is in the beauty ideal or standard of the time, especially if you don't fit into or experience the marginalization as well, that you then won't necessarily be exposed to those same things. And so it's like that layer also, which makes it like there's still so much work to be done, particularly for groups that are more targeted with that like negative discussion around the way that they appear or their body size as well.
I think TikTok is a really good example of a platform where there's a few initiatives that are trying to do some positive work in the space, but there is some problematic elements to it. For example, there was a paper published out of the University of Melbourne last year, and this looked at the TikTok algorithm, which we know delivers really personalized content. The researchers of this study found that users with eating disorders, their algorithm was disproportionately showing them content related to disordered eating and appearance-orientated content compared to people without eating disorders. On the flip side of this year in June, TikTok banned internationally the hashtag SkinnyTok, which is a positive step. So if you search SkinnyTok or a similar term, you're met with content about support services and positive body image messages, which is fantastic. Having said that, it doesn't solve the problem completely. There's still unrealistic beauty standards being shown on TikTok, obviously, but they're doing their best to really remove the extreme end that is promoting that really problematic thinness and hashtag skinny talk.
Yeah, I guess they're doing things. Like
They're doing things.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think the social pressure from people and advocates and researchers on platforms like TikTok, as well as like government pressure too, has been that they need to make changes to improve those things.
Yes.
And so to do that, they have made steps like banning a hashtag, which has, like you've said, it is really helpful that when that is searched, that type of positive and resource kind of seeking content is promoted.
Yeah.
However, I think TikTok and social media platforms generally do serve their mission to kind of promote advertising and other things. And within that comes these algorithms which really do promote and link in, like, yeah, they feed in that content which breeds social comparison.
Yeah.
And that is a really big source of where kind of body image challenges can come in. So there's a few theories within the research, and social comparison is kind of a leading one of those.
I was just thinking, what a fantastic link. We've found ourselves here.
So social comparison theory is where we naturally do this. We naturally compare ourselves to others, and that's kind of to evaluate our abilities and other things about ourselves against other people. So with social comparison, though, this upward comparison, so if you're comparing yourself to someone that you view as kind of superior to yourself or better than yourself, that is where we produce these kind of negative evaluations of us. So, you know, if I'm scrolling through TikTok or I'm scrolling through Instagram and all I'm being fed through those algorithms, or all I'm seeing are videos and content of people that to me look perfect and look like this ideal body type or ideal appearance or image, if all I'm seeing is that, it is going to result in this negative perception of myself. So you have this social comparison where then I would think, well, all of these people or everyone I'm seeing on social media looks a certain way, has this thing that I want, has this perfect, I don't know, shape of a particular face or whatever it is, that I should have that then, or I am less than because I'm, you know, doing this upward comparison towards that content. I think social media creates this ability to constantly be making these upward social comparisons, and it's hard to filter out that content when we're on platforms where the algorithm kind of breathes that in to us, like into what we see.
Definitely. I know we've spoken a lot about like social media and media as a source of appearance pressure. Preparing for this episode, we went through the research and came across a few models that spoke to key sources of appearance pressures. And these were things, obviously, like media and social media, but also one's peer group, so who people are surrounded by, and people's family as well can really feed into appearance pressures or not. There was this theory that spoke to how we have these numerous sources, family, friends, media, that contribute to appearance pressures. And these can take two different pathways. One is the social comparison pathway, which you spoke to, where we compare ourselves to our family, our friends, who we see online. But another pathway that contributes to negative body image is when we internalize these unrealistic beauty standards. So not only are we comparing ourselves to others, but we're forming thoughts and beliefs about, okay, this is ideal and therefore I should or I must look like that in order to meet the ideal.
Yeah. And that is where all of that kind of history of the body image as well plays into this, in that depending on the society of the time and the culture and what is the ideal, that will shape how this looks. And so if we don't fit into that like body ideal or standard of the time, whatever is the social kind of thing of the moment, then we can like if we've internalized that that is the beauty standard and we don't fit that, and we're comparing ourselves to others who we think do fit that, then that all interplays and can contribute to body image dissatisfaction.
Exactly.
It is such a common challenge, as we're saying, and particularly it's becoming really normalized in Western societies in particular for people just to be dissatisfied with how we look. Like it's just almost common practice for that to be a thing that we're all experiencing, which is, you know, really horrible when you think about it, just the time that we all spend kind of feeling dissatisfied with our bodies. And whilst it is a thing that most of us are dealing with, it's also something that we can work on and think about and continually try to grow a healthier relationship with our body image. So it's something that we can work on.
Exactly. And as two psychologists, we highly recommend like therapy and counseling. And there's numerous different like therapeutic modalities to help with this. So some people might do like cognitive behavioral therapy or acceptance and commitment therapy, or work on self-compassion and mindfulness, or schema therapy, or group therapy, family therapy. There's all these different theoretical approaches that work with improving body image.
Yes, which speaks to that we always say to seek out a healthcare professional and get in touch with a psychologist as well for support. With the, I guess the methods that draw on acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, which we've talked about lots on the podcast, there's kind of body image flexibility approaches, and these focus on kind of accepting or allowing those uncomfortable thoughts about our bodies and feeling them without necessarily fighting them. So, you know, acknowledging things like we're more than our appearance, asking ourselves like values-based questions around what matters beyond how you look, and doing what matters despite kind of being or experience discomfort around our body image. So things like, I feel uncomfortable about my body and I'm going to the beach because time with friends matters to me. So kind of taking that values-based approach and acknowledging the experience of these thoughts around our body image, but trying to acknowledge them in a non-judgmental way and kind of letting values lead, which I guess is where that ACT approach comes in. There's also been discussions, and we've already talked about the term in this episode around body acceptance, but I think that speaks to something that's really helpful when we're talking about our relationship with our body image, in that this, I guess, talks to the fact that not everyone will like what they see when they look in the mirror, and that feeling positive in your body every time is kind of impossible or unrealistic to expect or achieve. We're not going to feel that we're completely comfortable and happy with how we look at all times of the day, and at all times in our lives, but that I guess working through our relationship with our thoughts and feelings and beliefs about our body is really important too, which is where I think the therapy element of CBT and ACT really comes in and is helpful.
Yes. The Butterfly Foundation also have some amazing strategies about boosting a healthy body image. We will include the link to this post in our show notes, but some of the key strategies we just wanted to touch on now. One of them was reminding yourself that the world we live in promotes unrealistic beauty standards. So just being mindful that when we consume content, so much of that content is created and so much of it that is platformed is promoting things that aren't realistic. And just going back to the function of your body and focus on what can your body do, what can your body achieve, and what else is kind of going on for you other than just your physical appearance. So extending your value beyond your body and also thinking about your qualities and your strengths and your attributes and all the things that make you who you are. I know there's like the famous quote that it's my body is the least interesting thing about me. And I think that really speaks to there's so much about an individual person. Your body is just one small tiny little factor that isn't even interesting.
Also the practice of kind of body gratitude. So what are you grateful for that your body can do?
Yes.
And we've talked about this, I think, with like exercise or
Yes.
something as well. Like, the being grateful that I am able to, walk to this place and my body can do that. Or like, yeah, being grateful for the different things that your body does to serve you as well, rather than that thought pattern around how your body looks. There's also the relationship that we have with social media and the media that we're consuming, and being mindful of that in order to help build a more positive relationship with our body image. So it's practicing kind of some critical thinking around the media and the messages that we're consuming, remembering that what we see on social media or just in other places as well might not be real or realistic. And this is particularly pertinent at the moment given AI image generation. And
Yes.
yeah, like stuff looks so real.
Yeah.
It's so hard to distinguish what is real from what isn't real on social media, and particularly with the kind of editing abilities of photos and all of this stuff. I mean, it used to be a big discussion about Photoshop in the past, and that was kind of I mean, it's still a problem, but that was like a big discussion, I reckon,
10,
5-10 years ago. Yeah. So sometime that it was about Photoshop in magazines and the filters that were put on things.
Yeah.
I think now with AI, like complete people can be generated and they don't actually exist.
Yes.
And that's a big area to be mindful of when you're
Yes.
going through and consuming content, when you're scrolling through TikTok, when you're scrolling through Instagram, when you're seeing advertisements and you're finding yourself in that social comparison space where you're comparing the way you look to these images, to be mindful that they might not even be real people.
Yes.
And that the things that you're looking at may be modified in a whole number of different ways.
Yes. Like an AI model is the definition of an unrealistic beauty standard because it isn't real. Like it doesn't exist.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just keeping that in mind, also limiting your exposure to these kind of very like high beauty standard or these images where they are really kind of photoshopped or idealized to look perfect.
Yeah.
And that reducing the amount of exposure you have to that content will by nature lead to less of that social comparison, which can improve our relationship with body image. Part of that can be kind of spending less time on social media, but also it can be just removing the accounts, like unfollowing or like not engaging with accounts where you find you're making that social comparison, that negative upward comparison to them very frequently. So if there are, different things on social media you engage with and you know that they make you feel like not good about yourself, kind of removing that from your feed if you're able to, but also diversifying what you see. So like in the opposite to unfollowing those accounts that make you feel bad, following more diverse people on social media or accounts that really promote that body acceptance, or also provide information about kind of building a positive relationship with your body image. And just kind of getting out, like you mentioned, you can kind of find yourself in these silos where you're just consuming content and it might all be of this perfect body standard or beauty ideal, and trying to diversify what you're seeing on your social media platforms.
Another strategy is just being kind to yourself and recognizing that everyone has moments where they don't feel good about their body, and poor body image days happen. And it's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about. It's something everyone experiences and go through. And it does take time, and to give yourself that time and respect to appreciate your body for what it does and to be grateful for it, and know that it won't just come automatically, and if you have a bad body image day, you're a failure. Like, that isn't at all the case. But just being mindful that, you know, everyone experiences this, and your body's not a problem to fix. It's just an ongoing relationship that you'll have with your body image, and that will fluctuate and change over time, but it's worth working on building a healthy and positive body image.
Absolutely. We have talked a lot about body image and challenges with body image. And like we mentioned earlier, a lot of conversations about body image kind of overlap with or can bring up things around challenges with eating or eating disorders. And we wanted to, again, make this big reminder that if anything today is bringing up concerns for you, that you please reach out to a healthcare professional. There are also the key resources in the show notes, including the Butterfly Foundation and Inside Out Institute, which are, a few key kind of eating disorder resources or services as well.
They're both Australian based, and they do amazing research and work into body image and eating disorders.
Yeah, and so those services are in the show notes as well if you need any more support.
And as always, thank you so much for listening.
You can find us on all different platforms at This Might Help podcast, and the video version of this is also on YouTube, and we will catch you next week in another episode.
Bye.